Or Anthony, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me?
I got you now, my friend, loud and
Okay,
clear.
good. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, good to be here. You're so right about DeSantis, by the way. I couldn't help but listening to the last episode. You don't do that to people. Those are human beings. That could have been my grandmother, could have been your grandmother, Brian. It could have been one of your listeners' grandparents or mom or somebody. You don't do that to people for political purposes. That's a sign of bullying, and I think it's disgusting, to be totally candid. So
Could not agree with you more, Anthony. And then you have Republicans like Chip Roy who come out this morning and endorse Ron DeSantis, assuming he's going to run for president. And in his statements, he actually gave DeSantis praise for that political stunt. What do you make of some of these Republicans that clap? I mean, Ron DeSantis was in Las Vegas over the weekend. He bragged about what he did with these migrants, and people clapped. I mean, what do you say about people?
Well, I mean, they're taking this whole, white is bright route. I don't want to call it full on white supremacy, but it's a blend of that, and it leads into the culture war. So the culture war is cloaking their white supremacy, if you really wanted me to be totally candid. So their whole attitude is, listen, whites are losing power, the demography is changing, rather than being great entrepreneurs and changing the party's views to look like the beautiful, colorful mosaic of the American people, and to come up with great, innovative ideas around the free markets and self-reliance. They want to go hard into the culture wars and then challenge the democracy. So, somebody like Trump, as an example, lost the election, couldn't admit that he lost the election, and wanted to challenge the democratic forces that have made the country so good. So, listen, I'm a lifelong Republican. I find this stuff reprehensible. Hopefully we'll find somebody sound-minded that isn't afraid to speak the truth, go after this sort of nonsense in the party, and call it out for what it is. But the Republican Party is a minority party now, meaning its voter registration is well below the Democrats. And obviously the largest party in the country right now is the independents. 41% of the people are registered as independents. And so Republicans are the minority party for a reason. They can't come up with any new ideas. Their ideas are grounded in the 1950s, and I think it's really silly.
So you were on speaking terms, right, with Donald Trump during the whole Stormy Daniels saga, right? I mean, that was when you were talking to Donald Trump, I would imagine, on a fairly...
I knew Trump for 20 years. I mean, I haven't talked to him since 2019, to be candid. We got into a little bit of a fight in 2019. He's a baby. When you're a bully like that, you don't like people standing up to you, so he was a little bit of a baby. I think he was trying to come up with a nickname for me. I hit him with, you're the fattest president since William Howard Taft. He didn't like that. And
did you say that right to his face?
I said it on Twitter. I think I got knocked off of Twitter for like 12 hours because you can't fat shame people on Twitter. But then I did say to him, I talked to Stormy because I was on the Bill Maher show with Stormy. And I said, I talked to Stormy. Everybody's got a nickname. Yours is Tiny Trump. See what I mean? And then once I said that, he flipped out, and then the fight stopped because he's not used to that, right? These other guys couldn't handle him like that because they're not New Yorkers, Also, they're politicians, so they're afraid of him. Like a business person who's actually made money on their own wouldn't be afraid of him. This guy, he's born with a platinum spoon in his mouth, so he's one of the big babies of all time. And he's gotten away with his size and using his bullying nature. And these politicians will get steamrolled by him, though. He'll shake and bake DeSantis in a debate. He won't be able to handle Trump.
I agree with you. So I wanted to ask you about the Stormy Daniels situation, because now there's possible indictments that are going to come down, and this could be serious for Donald Trump. You were around Donald Trump when apparently this $130,000 hush money payment was made. And I believe Stormy Daniels. I don't believe Donald Trump. I believe that this did happen. Do you believe that there actually will be an indictment and Donald Trump will be held accountable for this?
Well, it feels like there's going to be an indictment. I think his attorney, his defense attorney is already out there. So I'm pretty sure they're indicating to them that there's going to be an indictment. The defense attorney said last night on cable news that Donald Trump was extorted. So I'm pretty sure the money, they're making an admission that the money was paid. So I'm not really sure exactly what the defense is going to be. I think the prosecutors are taking the case that it's a campaign violation, the way he went about doing this. But listen, I don't like the case. I don't like Donald Trump, but I'm not in love with this case because I think it's all about something about nothing, frankly. And if you're going to put an American president in jail, I think you got to have guns ablazing, very high threshold standard of guilt, because you have to give these people the benefit of the doubt. And Brian, listen, I don't like Trump, but I tell you what I do like. I love our democracy and I love our rule of law. And I don't want a banana republic. Now we have one party. It used to be the Republican Party. It's now the Banana Republic Party. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to set up a situation where our political adversaries are building jail cells for each other, depending on when they're in office. Look at what happened to Lula in Brazil.
Right.
He's in jail, comes out of jail to beat Bolsonaro, and now they're fighting again, and now Bolsonaro's in trouble. I mean, I don't love that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And it's tawdry. And the U.S., despite the fact that we're very self-critical of ourselves, we're still the great American experiment. We're still the last best hope for mankind. Like Lincoln said, we have the largest economy, or we're tied for the largest economy. And we have a great immigrant success story, which I've lived and perhaps your family has lived,
Sure.
where our families, came from relatively little and we've made something here. And that's the promise and spirit of America. And so I don't want that stuff sullied because Trump is a bad guy and probably a criminal. I don't want to go in that direction. I just want to make one last point.
Sure.
Ted Kennedy excoriated President Ford, in September of 1974 for pardoning Nixon. 35 years later, on his deathbed, he wrote a memoir. And he said, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Jerry Ford had the right idea. He was trying to heal the country and get the national nightmare over. And ultimately, as a statesperson, a statesman or woman, that was the right decision. So I just caution people about jailing our political adversaries. I'm not in love with it.
I agree with you. It's an embarrassment to Trump, but you have to have, as you said, guns ablazing, and I'm not sure this case is that. If you're just joining us, the Mooch Anthony Scaramucci joining us. It's interesting, Anthony, because you're a lifelong Republican, right? And maybe I exaggerate a little bit. I'm an independent, but when I look at the Republican platform, particularly the Ron DeSantis's of the world, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, it seems like their platform is they'd rather talk about drag queens, reading books to our kids than AR-15s killing children. They'd rather talk about, the threat of the LGBTQ community and trans people. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that, and particularly Fox News, because you used to make a lot of regular appearances on Fox News, and I always enjoyed it when you went on there. And it seems like ever since you spoke the truth about Donald Trump, you're not on anymore.
Well, I didn't like it. I mean, the problem with somebody like me, because I know so much, when I'm on with the anchor and they're trying to do their, verbal jujitsu, I'm coming in with the Jedi mind tricks. I mean, they can't get over on me because I know everything. I watch Trump in action. I know when Trump is lying. I know when he knows he's lying. And so they're trying to get a narrative. They're trying to gin up a lot of white anger, which gives them that big ratings sleeve. I don't want that for the country. What I want is a national healing and a national unity. So you're bringing up things. Listen, we can debate these things, but we're together, right? The first name of the country is United. Last time I checked, it's the United States. It's not the disunited States. It's not, let me divide the United States for ratings. Let me say crazy stuff to get people angry on television.
Right.
And so they didn't like that because I was coming at them with some level of common sense. But you're talking about the LB, and I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but the lesbian, gay, trans community, however you say the acronym. I'm a socially inclusive person. Okay. There's probably 13 to 14% of the population, okay, that has a sexual orientation that is same sex.
Right.
I love those people. I don't have anything against those people. Some of those people are in my family. I did not choose my sexuality. I don't believe people do choose their sexuality. Mm-hmm. And I am an inclusive person, and I love those people. And so I don't think making room and space for comfort and inclusion for those people should rile anybody up. And then we find that some of these people that get the most riled up, they may in fact have closeted issues related to this sort of stuff. Yep. And it's very, very hypocritical. So for me, the Republicans are making a mistake because, believe it or not, there are conservative people that have a same-sex orientation. There are unbelievable families, Latin American families, African American families. You pick the racial identity that are conservative, self-reliant families that believe in the hard work ethic, the free enterprise system. They don't want gigantic, sizable government. But they have no space now in the Republican Party because of all the jingoism and because of all the cultural warfare and all the nonsense. Now, listen, not your radical lefty guys aren't going to like this from me either. I'm not in love with that nonsense either. Don't shove your lifestyle down the throat of somebody that doesn't want to hear it. I am a heterosexual male. I'm not making out with my wife on every street corner.
Right.
Okay. There's a time and place for things.
Sure.
And I don't mind your sexual orientation, but don't shove it on somebody that's a religious Christian or something like that. Give them their space as well. That's what made the country great. You can live in the country. I can live in the country. We can all live here and enjoy the country and have our own relative space without denigrating the other person. So
sure, I couldn't agree with you more.
Trump is making a huge mistake. If they built a bigger tent and they took that point of view, they would be embracing a lot more people, and they would no longer be the minority party that they become because of all of this white supremacy nonsense.
Couldn't agree with you more. Going back to Fox News, what do you make of Kevin McCarthy giving the January 6th footage to Tucker Carlson, and then Tucker Carlson cherry picking that footage and making it out to be some sort of tourist visit with little to no violence? What do you make of that?
Well, I would ask people to go to the Bill Maher show last week and just look at the clip that Bill read Tucker's speech, and then he actually showed footage that contradicted what Tucker was saying. But again, that's their narrative. Kevin, I mean, he's like General Jellyfish now at this point in his career. I know Kevin forever. We're the same age. He looks 500 years old. And when you lie to people like that and you turn on people and you have no principles and you have a jellyfish for a spine, you look 500 years old. This guy looks like, Grandpa Munster now from the Munsters, primarily because he can't keep his story straight. And he wanted to be Speaker of the House more than he wanted to be a patriotic American. So I get all that, but I just think it's a shame. He had the chance to put lights out on Trump. Okay, Trump inspired that insurrection. He was part and parcel of that violent activity that took place. There's a group of conservatives that will never want to hear that, but that's factually based. It's well documented, well investigated, and they impeached them for a second time. It went down partisan lines, but they could have worked together, him and McConnell, and they could have impeached and effectively removed him and the political cancer that he represents from the American body politic. And by the way, if you like those views, if you like Republican views and conservative views, there are better people, there are better messengers for that movement than Donald Trump. And we better hope that the next two presidential candidates love our democracy and are inspired to renew the concepts of our democracy. Because let me tell your listeners something, Brian. You give up the democracy, it may work in the short term for your business. That's proto-fascism. People were pretty happy with Hitler and Mussolini in the beginning. But then what happens is their oligarchy sets in, or their autocracy sets in. And then the rules become arbitrary and capricious in an autocracy. They favor elites way more than they favor the regular people. And when that order breaks down, it becomes impossible to move classes. Okay. And people have to understand that. They have to study it over a 5,000-year perspective. Give up the democracy. You're going to lose the aspiration for your family and the generational movement of the American dream. And so we have to have presidential candidates that are democracy and patriots first and partisan second.
Two-part question, Mooch. First off, when you look at the big faces of the Republican Party today, I guess you could call them the most popular: the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Lauren Boeberts, the ones that make headlines, the Jim Jordans, the Matt Gaetz. Two-part question. Number one, why are they the faces of the party right now? And number two, if you were in a room with some of these people, I want to know what you would say to them.
Well, they won't go in a room with me. They never want to debate me. They never want to see me. I offered Steve Bannon money to debate me. He said no. Matt Gaetz was supposed to attend an event with me that was a Republican event in Florida. When he saw me on the agenda, he immediately canceled. And so I said, no problem. I'll cancel. Let Matt go to the event. My point is they don't want to deal with me because I'm telling the truth about the situation. and they don't like that. They feel, see, their political consultants, Brian, have told them, hey, listen, toe Trump's line. He's got a very strong base, wink, wink away from the camera, but toe Trump's line so that you don't lose those voters, because we are now the minority party and you're going to need those voters to cross the election. My friend David McCormick was running for the Republican senatorial position in Pennsylvania. And he was a sort of moderate, establishment-oriented Republican. He went to see Trump to say, Trump, President Trump, please just stay out of the race. Trump said, no, I'm endorsing somebody. And if you want my endorsement, you have to tell people that the election was stolen from me. And nobody believes that the election was stolen from him. Even Trump, I know when Trump is lying, he's lying through his teeth about that. And so that's a galvanizing thing to cling on to all these conspiracy theorists. Okay. And so he wasn't willing to do that. And so he lost that election to Mehmet Oz. Mehmet Oz went on to lose the seat to Fetterman. And the Republicans could have won that seat. And so a political consultant would have said to David, do what to Trump's backside and do anything you can to get his endorsement. Now, that would be against all of his principles. And so he didn't do that, and he lost the election. But these other principleless people that you're referencing, that's what they're doing. They're out there shaking and baking with Trump because it keeps them in power. But it's a deterioration of the body politic, and it hurts the American Republic. And I find it reprehensible, and I'm going to continue to speak out about it. And people can hate me for it. I don't care. One of the beauties about being a high-profile person, you either care what other people think of you or you don't. I've decided that what other people think of me is none of my business. So I'm happy to tell people what I think.
And I love that. But why is it you think that Donald Trump cares so much about what everybody thinks about him? Like, anybody that attacks him, anybody that says anything negative about him, he'll go after. It could be a TV host, it could be a politician, it could be somebody like yourself.
I answered you, Brian. He's very insecure. Okay, look what I said. He's tiny Trump. He's very, very insecure. He has to overcompensate. All that hyper masculinity is related to his insecurity. The 2-inch heels. He's standing on 2-inch lifts. The orange war paint, the orange hair dye, all of that stuff, the girdle, all of that stuff is overcompensation for morose insecurity. One of my buddies who's in the real estate business, he brought his 88-year-old Italian American mother down to see Trump at Mar-a-Lago about 25 years ago. And Trump pulled up with 2 Ferraris, and she's 88 years old. She's a blue-collar lady, spoke broken English, but she said, Donald, why are you so insecure? Okay, and we know the answer. He's a very tiny guy. He's tiny on the outside, and his brain's tiny on the inside, and a result of which he's in the overcompensation business. And that's intimidating to a politician, because politicians, they want to go on a radio show like this, and they want to say pablum or nonsense so that there's no one offended by what they're saying. Trump's coming in as the orange wrecking ball. They don't know how to handle him.
Yeah, no,
but that's why he backed off. Once he started fighting with me, and I hit him a few times, he stopped immediately, because, what is he going to, Anderson Cooper was like, oh, you and Trump are in like a verbal bar fight. I'm like, Anderson, this guy has never been in a bar fight. Okay. This is a mama's boy. Okay. He could have never lasted in my neighborhood. Okay. We would have smacked him around. His mother would have had to lock the front door. We would have gone to the back door and pulled him by his hair out of the house. He's just not a good guy. He's not a good guy. I know he's not a good guy. And let's stop following him around. He's a terrible leader for the country. Don't take us in a direction that all of us will hate if we go in that direction. And this is a country of love, not a country based on hate. This is an inclusive country and a united country.
Probably a question you've been asked before, and then we'll get off Trump. But do you remember the last in-person conversation you had with him? Or maybe it was when you were leaving the White House and you were the communications director for a short period of time.
I got fired after 11 days. I said something about Steve Bannon. You can look it up. It's not appropriate for the radio. I said it to a friend. He recorded it and ran to CNN with it. I'm a New Yorker. It was very colorful. And I got fired. I deserved to be fired. I never complained about it. I never blamed anybody. Somebody said to me, what happened? I said something stupid. Trump and John Kelly fired me. Interestingly enough, John Kelly and I have become personal friends. I work with him on some of the Marine charities. but Trump never got over it, because that's his personality. That's fine. I don't hold grudges. I'm just speaking truth to power related to Trump.
Sure,
But my last conversation with him was on Long Island. It was Friday, the Friday before I got fired. So it was the 28th of July, and he was giving an MS-13 anti-gang speech on Long Island. I was with him, and he said to me, you shouldn't have said that, but it's fine. Let's move on. It's a stupid thing I said about Bannon. And then he called me over the weekend on that Saturday morning, and he said, okay, the news cycle is over. This will pass. And then on Monday at about 9 o'clock in the morning, I got fired. And so, and I think that Trump was probably okay with it. If, again, being totally candid, I said something stupid. I think Trump was going to let me slide, but I think General Kelly, frankly, fired me because he was trying to establish order. He was the chief of staff. I had a high profile, colorful personality, and he probably thought I was going to be a distraction to him doing that. And so he fired me. He had the right to fire me. I took it like a man. I accepted it and stayed friends with Kelly. It's no problem. I mean, I'm a big boy. Where Trump and I got into it was he didn't like when I was on the Bill Maher show. I was literally defending him and lots of his policies, but I said, you can't send the women back to the country they originally came from. That's the congresswomen. I said, primarily because they were born in the United States. And moreover, that's American nativism. They said that to my Italian-American grandmother in the 1920s. Very hurtful to her. I remember her crying about it when I was a kid. It's a racist statement. He really shouldn't say it. And so when the show ended, Bill said to me, you went 7 for 8 for Trump. You got to go 13 for 10. And he's going to come after you tomorrow. I said, Bill, there's no way. I've been nothing but supportive of the guy. Sure enough, he came after me. And then once the fight started, I know how to fight. I'm not going to. Let me tell you something. I'm a New Yorker. You don't grow up where I grew up and get to where I am without being able to take on a bully or two.
No, I know.
So once the fight started, I'm like, let's go. And then, he's a big baby. Once I started besting him in the verbal sparring, he went into retreat.
Not a surprise. A couple more quick questions for you, Mooch, and we really do appreciate your time. It seems like a lot of Republicans these days, not you, but a lot of those in office want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, a private citizen, but they don't want to talk about Ivanka Trump and her business dealings in China. They don't want to talk about Jared Kushner and a $2 billion deal he apparently got from the Saudis. What do you make of that? That Republicans, they want to talk about Hunter's laptop, but they don't want to talk about those that were in Trump's administration.
So I'm gonna tell you something. Maybe it doesn't reflect well on me, or maybe it does. I've made a decision to make my battle with Trump and not with Jared or Ivanka. I always got along with Jared and Ivanka and the other Trump family members. And a message got to me through a third party. Hey, if you don't bash them, they won't bash you. They can't be in a fight with every single person that their father's deciding to fight with. So I have a sort of personal thing where I don't really talk about them. But if you're saying that there's hypocrisy on both sides where they go after each other, yes, there's hypocrisy on both sides. I don't want them going after any of those people. Let's keep the gun on the bird. If you want to attack President Biden for his policies, please do. If you want to attack President Trump for his policies or the way he thinks about America, please do. But I hear you. I try to stay away from the kids because
I understand.
It's to me, I don't want to be in a fight with them. But I hear you.
Yep. All right. So before I let you go here, is there anybody out there, Anthony Scaramucci, that you would say, hey, I can support that person to be the next president of the United States that has a realistic chance of winning? Because let's be honest.
Other than Brian Shapiro, you got to shave that beard, though, man. You got to shave that beard.
Terrible.
That beard's not going to work in certain red states. You know what I mean?
You're right about that.
Listen, I don't know, but I will say this. Barack Obama came out of left field for the Democrats, meaning, they were all set up in 2008 for Hillary Clinton, and the movement and the establishment was for her. And he bested her and went on to have an 8-year run as president. There might be somebody out there that'll throw their hat in the ring that will surprise people. I don't see that person right now. But maybe if you ask me that question, invite me back, ask me that question in 6 months, I'll have a better answer for you. But there's nobody right now that has the gumption. You got to have 3 things. You got to understand the country and love the country and want to remake the country more inclusive. Sort of this American renewal. Number 2, you got to be able to take on Trump, okay? And you got to have a sense of humor about it because we're in the entertainment business and politics more than anything else.
Yep.
And then the third thing you got to have in my opinion, is a ability to compromise. The next president has to be a transformative post-partisan leader, he or she, because if you want to unite the country, you can't sit with your tribe. Okay, these politicians have decided the way I win, sit with my tribe, pee on the other tribe, set fire to the other tribe. And you got to get somebody stronger than that, tougher than that, has more wisdom than that, more maturity than that, to knit a coalition of people together to rebuild the middle of the country, and so that those independents that are now 41% say, yeah, no, that's for me, and they start, growing that party. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I appreciate your time. I'm sending you love.
Thank you.
I like the city you live in a lot, and I see the Sabres up there, or the Penguins. I'm sorry, is that Penguins or the Sabres?
That's the Sabres, my man.
Yeah, I see the Sabres up there. God bless you. My
Next
wife
time-
went to the University of Buffalo.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Well, Anthony, I know how busy of a guy you are, and it means a lot to me every time you join us on the program. One of my favorite guests, and you'd have my vote if you ever ran for office, my friend. I know that's
I appreciate it. Right now, I'm running for re-election in my marriage. Okay, my wife's platform is castration, so I got to be super careful, Brian. But
you are a smart guy. You are an honest guy. We need more people like you out there. Anthony Scaramucci, thank you so much for your time, my friend. I appreciate you.
Lots of love to you, and congratulations on the program.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Love that guy. Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch. He's honest. He's fair.